Hello, beautiful people. How are you guys doing today? Alright, so we're sitting down. We're getting comfortable on the couch. It's gonna be story time. I've been meaning to record this video for a while. It's gonna be part one of obviously 3 series because now we're gonna be having our 3rd baby. And I've been hesitant sharing our birth story online. However, I figured I could share it in hopes of educating other parents about different experiences and how to better prepare themselves, because really it's just the more information you know, the more equipped you are to have a more you know, a birthing experience that you would prefer. So without further ado, let's go back to 2017. April of 2017. I was still working part-time. They put me on part-time because they knew I was going to go into labor soon. So I was working at a local supplement store. Had my usual 40, my 40-week appointment was coming up. We were so excited because we were going to see the baby again. Getting to see the baby in the belly is just, it's really nice. And so my husband was there as well because I think he was off of work. So we both went to that appointment and checking the baby. She's like, yeah, everything is okay. And then she stops and lingers for a second. She's very quiet. I'm like, okay. So she says that she needs to step out and she'll be right back. And we're like, okay, cool. She comes back and they're like, well. So basically what had happened was the amniotic fluid was decreasing or had decreased, and any lower or non-optimal level of amniotic fluid is not good for the baby. This compromises their oxygen, their blood flow, a lot of things, just their livelihood, because that's their whole world is the amniotic fluid. So if there's not enough or too much, in my case not enough, it's not good. And so they're like, well, because of this, we need to induce you either today or tomorrow. My husband and I are like, okay, cool. So we came back the same day we left, thankfully. And this is why you always pack your bags. Granted, I was 40 weeks. So at 40 weeks, I hope you have your bags packed. So yeah, we went home, grabbed our bags, and we left. And we were at the hospital overnight. Honestly, that night was really chill. I brought my bouncy ball. We were chilling, and what they used for induction was Pitocin. And so it's a very mild hormone inducer. And I say mild because every woman's body reacts differently to these inducers, whether it's Pitocin, I forget the other names, epidural, or the other ones. Regardless of what you're using, every woman's body reacts differently to them. And so once I was admitted, I waited for a little bit, and within the first couple hours is when they administered 1 dose, and I only got 1 dose of Pitocin, and they gave me the gel. So they rubbed the gel on my cervix and they let it do its thing. And it was a very slow progression, very slow. Yeah, I could feel it. Like overnight, we were there the whole night. I could just feel the dilation. But it was really chill. I was bouncing on my bouncy ball. My mother-in-law came over and we were all there. We were playing Dutch Blitz. It was me, I forget who was there. My sister-in-law was there too. We were playing Dutch Blitz. It's a card game. It was a really chill night. I brought my diffuser. It was just a really nice setting there. So I took a nap between around midnight and around 3 o'clock in the morning, and by the time I woke up, I felt even more pressure to the point where I couldn't go back to sleep. So I sat up in the bed, stretched a little bit, and then my water broke. And I was like, okay, cool. It's go time. Let's go. Little did I know that I was going to be in labor for almost another 12 hours. And so, yeah, it was just a very gradual gradual progression. So one thing to know about inductions is it's only supposed to be given during emergent situations where the delivery just needs to be sped up. So either the baby is compromised or the mother is compromised, or both. In some scenarios, it all depends. There's so many different scenarios. If I were to list them all, we'd be here for a long time. But that's generally the gist for inductions. However, because of the way that the medical system is set up, at least here stateside, I can't speak for anywhere else, here in the United States, there is a sense of control, especially when it comes to the OB unit, for a number of reasons. Either the doctor is busy, they need to, and for that reason, they need to speed up a delivery. What else? There's the compensation aspect, which people don't want to talk about, but that is there because, depending on how a mother delivers or how a baby is born, the pay rate for doctors and nurses varies, which is quite interesting. And so, so there are so many reasons behind the scenes as to why inductions are done. The primary reason, though, is for the health of the mother and baby. That's first and foremost. However, there are other hidden agendas, and those are a few of them. And so, especially when it comes to first-time moms, I feel as though their lack of knowledge or experience can be taken advantage of. And that's why I always emphasize for first-time moms, during your pregnancy, read stories, look at the statistics from an objective point of view, too, especially if you are emotionally sensitive. You don't want to be taking on other people's experiences. You don't want to take on statistics. Statistics are there for a reason, generally for awareness, so that way you can enact and change different and do things differently. And so, people think, statistics, because they fit a certain demographic, it pertains to them. Not necessarily. And so, so that's really important for moms and for your partner too to be aware of as well, because they will be your advocate. If they're going to be there with you while you're giving birth, they're going to be your advocate when you can't say, because there will be times when you're pushing, things are happening, you can't speak. And so they are your advocate. And if you need an additional one, hire a doula. That's what they're there for. And so, I just wanted to reiterate that. And so, and I'll talk more about Pitocin and how it affects birth, both during and after. And so, so about almost 12 hours later, I was still dilating. About the top of the morning to noon is when it really got intense. I felt the urge to poop and push, and the doctor was like, hold on. I think they checked and I was like 8 or 9 centimeters, and they said, hold on, don't push just yet. That's the hardest. I don't even want to call it self-control, because at that point your body just wants to push. But considering that you're 8 or 9 centimeters, it's not optimal. You're not all the way fully dilated, and so in this case that would not have been okay. I'll explain why in a second. So there's that waiting period of like just 1 centimeter. That was the most gruesome. It took about an hour for me to go from 8 or 9 to 10 to fully dilated. Most gruesome. It's like it's like trying to hold poop for about an hour. That's what it felt like. Just not even poop, I'll say like diarrhea. That's how intense it was. And so come around 1 o'clock, they're like, okay, cool, you're fully dilated, let's go. I was like, okay, great. And so at this point, I was not squatting between. I should have been, but I wasn't squatting you know, minus the night before when I was on the ball, which is like a very light squat. It's not a deep squat. And so I started to move around more. I asked if I could squat down just to help, because I, you know, based on the research that was there, you know, just having gravity to help you. Although there are some studies that say your positioning doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's your comfortability that comes first, you know, regardless of what position you're giving birth in. And so I was on my side for a good while because it was really nice. My husband could still get my back whenever I had those contractions. And that was really nice. And then I got into the squatting position a little bit while I was pushing. That helped a little bit. So I was in the squat position, pushing. It was for about 1 or 2 pushes, not long at all. And I could sense there was, I wouldn't say agitation per se, but just, I don't know what it was. Agitation, impatience, understandably so, because a lot of the reason for why women are on their backs is so the doctors and nurses can observe and see what's going on, which to some extent is important. However, if a woman is not comfortable on her back, let her try something else. And so at that point, I was just tired. So I went back on the bed, went on my back, I went back to pushing. And at this point, I was doing several pushes, and I could feel baby moving down, felt the ring of fire. And then after that, I felt she was stuck. She was stuck. I was pushing and I was like, And so, and this moment literally lasted a second, but it felt like eternity. All I heard was, I believe my husband said that she's turning purple, and I was like, oh, well dang. And next thing I knew, the doctor or the nurse that was on the side, making sure everything was okay. Next thing I knew, she was at the front making sure everything's fine. She was up on my side. She pushed my husband. She pushed my mother-in-law aside. She came in with her elbow. It's a technique in combination with the Mick-Roberts maneuver and suprapubic pressure. That's what she did within a matter of seconds. She acted very fast, reasonably so, because baby was not breathing. And so, yeah, it was crazy. And so after she did that, I felt a nudge, and I just kept on pushing. That was all that was in my mind. I did not care what was going on. No emotion was there. I was like, okay, it's go time. Baby needs to get out. She turned purple. Let's go. So I was just pushing. I finally felt her nudge a little bit, and she was finally out. It happened very quickly after that incident. And so, yeah, that is shoulder dystocia for you. Unexpected, because they did not, they were watching everything too, and she was coming out fine, you know, twisting out, doing her thing, and then she got stuck. So there are some things like that where you cannot predict at all. I remember reading a few papers beforehand about shoulder dystocia. And so, yeah, there are just some things you can't predict. And so, thank God, because with shoulder dystocia, there's a whole range of things that could go wrong. You know, your child can suffer from a mild sprain or anywhere to serious deformities, nerval deformities, from the neck up, because they can't breathe. And so, yeah, we were very, very fortunate in that scenario. Extremely fortunate. She's perfectly fine now. No strains, nothing. She just got stuck for a second. I'm laughing now, but it was really scary. My husband saw it all, so he has that in his head. I just felt. So that's the story of our firstborn. Now let's talk about what happens thereafter. I'm not only talking about a few months, up to a year afterwards, specifically regarding Pitocin. So, it's not uncommon for synthetic oxytocin to be administered to women during labor. About half of women are given synthetic oxytocin for various reasons. And so, however, there's a lack of education or disconnect preparing a woman, especially if she has a history of any mood disorders or depression, anxiety. There's a disconnection of education there. Just letting them know, like, hey, if you have this, here's how you can prepare yourself after birth to help with these side effects. And so there was a study done, I believe in 2017. I'll link it below. All the references and research I'll link below. And so there was research done on women, and regardless of whether they had a history of a mood disorder or not, their increased risk for developing postpartum depression or anxiety increased by about 36%, I believe it was specifically. Which is, it's not a lot, but it can be depending on the woman. And so for me, a few months down the line, I was open with my doctor and I was like, hey, I'm not feeling like myself. Let's analyze a few things. And so initially when I went to my doctor, it was under the notion that the foods that I was eating during my pregnancy and after were affecting the way my body was adjusting postpartum, which is a factor. If you're not getting subsequent nutrients, of course your body can't recover. At that time I was plant-based and I was deviating away from supplements and was really focusing on foods. However, I just wasn't eating properly, to be quite honest. I wasn't eating properly and I just wasn't eating. I would have times where I would just skip meals or just eat routine things, and I was not doing it for me postpartum. And so there was that contributed for me personally. And then of course, later on I was doing my, and so it wasn't until later on I had did some research and I found out this article about Pitocin and how it affects the body postpartum for up to a year later. And I was like, oh, this is what? Why isn't anyone talking about this? Why wasn't I warned? Considering about half of women get synthetic oxytocin. Why don't we talk about this? I understand there is that initial, the follow-ups after birth. Hey, are you okay? The surveys. But that's usually where it stops. Unless you bring up the conversation, that's usually where it stops. And so, yeah, I find that really unfortunate. So that's why I really wanted to share this birth story, to increase awareness about, postpartum recovery, unexpected birth scenarios. All right, so with all that being said, what are the takeaways from this video? One, educate yourself while you're pregnant, but not too much to overwhelm yourself or your partner. You don't want to do that. Secondly, ask for a cordless monitor, a cordless fetal monitor if necessary. Usually hospitals will have different monitoring systems outside of the corded one. And that's just for your comfortability as a mom, as a birthing mom, in the midst of the birthing process. Yeah, get cordless if you can. Thirdly, make sure your partner, whoever's there, your partner, your doula, your midwife, your birthing team, make sure they know your plans for birth, both during and after. Sometimes they will ask you before you start giving birth, which is awesome. And if not, bring it up. So that way they can know and are aware. And fourthly and lastly, invest in quality postpartum care. Quality, regardless of what foods you're eating, regardless of your lifestyle in general. Find a system to support you during that process, because if you're a better mom, your kids are gonna be better, your family's gonna function better. It all starts with you. So make sure you're good, so that way everyone else is good. Okay. All right, I hope that was helpful. I'm looking forward. The next video I'll be shooting will be what's in my hospital bag. So I'm prepping now. So thank you so much for tuning in today's video. Make sure you're subscribed so you get notified of the next upload. And until then, peace to you all. Bye for now.